Hi. So I'll be talking about the Urdu language. I think before lunch, Andrew talked about the history of the typeface and its certain complications with it, which kind of sets up nicely here. I'm going to talk about the role of Urdu language, or sort of its significance, and some of the issues that it's facing in the digital environment, and a few things that are being done to improve that presence. Like Andrew, I am not a type designer. I'm not a graphic designer. So the work that I'm going to talk about here is actually been done by Zirak Ahmed. I hope he's joining the live stream. If you are Zirak, thank you so much for what you have done for the Urdu language and what you are doing right now. This is about a keyboard design and also a text corpus that is super helpful for the Urdu language. Before I talk about the problems and what is being done, I'm going to share a small story that takes me back to 2014 and 15. That is when my sister was enrolled in her MPhil degree in the Urdu language, and I was helping her out with the typing of her dissertation, which was like 250 to 300 pages long. I quickly realized in my childhood that I am very bad in English and Urdu handwriting. So I just switched to the alternative, learned typing in both languages. That's why I was helping her out with the dissertation. And while doing so, I realized that typing a dissertation in Urdu, longer documents, is not really an easy task, especially back in 2015. We had to go through a series of steps to convert that into a format that could be exported as a text itself. So we used Urdu in page at that time to create that Urdu document for like 250 pages long. It was not in Unicode, so when you exported that, it would only export as image-based PDF files, obviously not text. So this is what we had to do, write the entire document in Urdu in page. That was the step one. Then go to a Unicode, an in-page to Unicode converter online, which were available for free but had certain limitations. Some of those are still available right now. You can see here that it says maximum 20,000 in-page characters, which means that, of course, a whole dissertation won't go in there. So you'll have to do it with small chunks of text over and over again. And then you take it back to Microsoft Word with some pre-installed fonts for Urdu language in itself. And what we did was that wrote the entire dissertation in Urdu in page, converted those tiny chunks, put them into Microsoft Word, then reformatted and organized things over and over again, which was a long process, pretty tedious. And that's when I was kind of thinking that if she was doing her MPhil in English language, it would have been much easier, or any other Latin language. A couple of years ago, I started thinking about this problem again when I started my PhD program in the communication and digital media from NC State University. And we were talking about the colonization of the digital space, and how certain languages are not really as visible or as you'd say as well represented in the digital environment. That's when I started thinking about the problems that Urdu is facing. And there were three major concerns, which I've highlighted in one of the papers that I recently wrote about Urdu and digital colonialism. So one of those is the design of the keyboard or the hardware itself, the QWERTY layout. Urdu language does not quite fit on the QWERTY layout, but just like many non-Latin languages, the same QWERTY layout was adopted for the language, and the language was somehow expected to kind of make peace with it. The second is the software or the support in digital word processing. The example I presented about the dissertation is one of those things that kind of falls in this category. And all the text that you're seeing, all the Urdu text in this presentation, I just made images of it because I wasn't sure how it's going to display here, not taking those risks here. The other thing is in academia and knowledge creation, where the question is that who is creating the knowledge? Who is it visible to? Is it even visible? If I'm doing some research in Urdu, will someone be able to read it? Will someone be able to find it? All of these things are, I think, important concerns for the Urdu language. And there are certain things which kind of need to be considered when we talk about Urdu language and its comparison with other Latin languages. One important difference here is that Urdu is written from right to left instead of from left to right. The other thing is that Urdu is not written just in a horizontal way. It does not just progress horizontally. There is a vertical or angular direction to it as well. As you can see here, that when you type longer words, they just stack on top of each other, creating that angular thing here. And then the what you type is what you get principle, as you call it. That does not really apply for the Urdu language if you're using a keyboard that has characters on it, because it is more of a shape-based language. So when characters join together, they change shapes. They can take different shapes in different places of the words. As you can see here with one character, kaf, these are just three different shapes it can take at the start of a word, at the middle of the word, and towards the end. So when you're typing Urdu, you do not really, like when the keyboard has characters on it, you might type something, but on the screen it might appear differently. This is where I think the design of a keyboard becomes very important, and something that has been going on from typewriters until we reach the digital age using smartphones is that we are using the same QWERTY layout. So this on the left you see here is the old typewriter, the Remington one for the English language, but the one you see on the other side is the Urdu typewriter, which was adopted using the same layout. It has similar number of keys. The good thing is that Urdu does not have capital letters, so you can use the shift key to kind of switch between characters, which is something that helped the Urdu language and adopt this particular layout as well. And the same thing was kind of translated into the smartphones and digital devices as well. The one on the top is what you see on an iOS keyboard, and the bottom one is an Android keyboard. You can see here that the number of keys are somewhere around 26 or maybe 27, but Urdu has more characters, so you need to use the shift key to reveal the other characters that you might not see on the first screen. And I think Matnsaz kind of solves this problem in a very interesting way, where you can see that these are not characters, these are shapes of characters. This, as you can also note here that there is no shift key, which means that all of these characters, which are 21 keys, can fulfill all the requirements you need to type Urdu language. So what happens is that you long press on one of the shapes and it can give you all the different shapes you can use, or the characters you can use to create from it. There's some interesting things about Matnsaz and can be noted here. One is that it is based on shapes and not characters. In these two images you can see that the keys themselves are changing shapes as you keep typing a word. The keyboard is responsive or adaptive in that nature. You might not be able to see the grayed areas here, but what happens is that sort of predicts the words and tells you that what is this particular character is going to look like in a particular word. So these changing shapes of the keys kind of are super helpful for people who are writing Urdu, because when I, as an Urdu writer, am writing Urdu language, I'm not thinking about the complete shapes of characters, but the forms that they're taking in particular words. So this is what the keyboard does very well. The other thing when it comes to Urdu is the use of dots and diacritics, which is a similar thing to Arabic. For example, when you write the word hey in Urdu, the ha in Arabic, so you put one dot in it, it becomes jim. You put one top of it, it becomes khe. You put three inside it, it becomes che. So it's the same shape, but it can create 4 different characters. And this is also something that Matnsaz makes use of. You are writing the word, you can use the same shape to create all of those different characters, and the dots keep on adding automatically because of autocorrect and predictive text. And also for the diacritics, some of those characters, some of those words will get diacritics automatically because of the autocorrect that is being used. But also if you want to add them yourselves, the diacritics are neatly stacked here. You can use them pretty easily. One thing that was of a little concern to me and bothering me when I started using Matnsaz was that I've been using the QWERTY layout or the character-based keyboard for quite some time on these smartphones. How am I going to shift to something that is more shape-based? And but later I realized that when I started typing on it, it was actually easy to do that. And I think I'm pretty fluent in typing using Matnsaz right now. But if someone is familiar more with the character-based or the QWERTY layout thing, they can use these multiple layouts here. As you can see, that you have the option to switch to the QWERTY layout or the alphabetical layout. The idea here, which Zivak himself talked about in one of the previous talks that I attended, was that the idea here is not to introduce something new that the users will spend a lot of time understanding or getting familiar with, but to make things easy for them. If you are familiar with something, you're more comfortable with that, you have the option to switch to that and use it like that. The second thing that is important here is to think about the authentic sources and the visibility of those sources in the digital environment. A small story here as well, which is related to Google Scholar. So I came across this one article. Again, Zivak introduced me to it. Otherwise, I don't think if I had ever found it. So the article is about the sources of Urdu script, a review. It is a scholarly article published in one of the academic journals in Pakistan. And what I did was that later on I tried to look it up on Google Scholar. I typed the name of the article, the English title of it. It gave me like 11,500 results, but the first 3 or 4 pages which I had the courage to skim did not have the article I was looking for. So I used the name of the author with it as well. The results went down to somewhere around 871, but still I could not find the article I was looking for. I switched to Urdu, used the title. I got 4 results. I was excited, but not for long because those 4 were not the ones I was looking for. I used the name of the author with it, and I couldn't find anything. So it was interesting that an article which is talking about Urdu script itself and is written in Urdu was not findable on Google Scholar. So if I have to learn about Google Scholar and someone has not introduced me to this particular article, I'll probably be restricted to all the English written work. This is also because most of the Urdu resources, particularly if we talk about the classical resources, the scholarly resources, and also the books and journals, those are still found as image-based PDFs. There is a very interesting and a rich platform which is called Rekhta, and they have a good collection of old Urdu books and old Urdu poetry as well. But all of the old things that you'll see over there are found in the form of images, not in the form of text. The first Urdu digital journal was published in 2009, but there were a lot of issues with that as well. I just read the editorial of that, and it took me a long time to read it because there were a lot of typing issues, and the things that they were using or the way the text was organized, there were a lot of mistypings and many errors in that. There's also the absence of spell check and autocorrect, which is also something that Matnsaz and Makhzan are trying to resolve to some extent. This is what an old Urdu book page might look like. This is from the 1920s. The title is Urdu Zuban Ki Tarikh, which translates into the history of the Urdu language. It's a pretty interesting book. I've read a bit of it, and it's very interesting. I used it to kind of learn a little bit more about where the script was coming from and all that. So this is what you'll typically see any Urdu classical resource as. And Makhzan is something that kind of ties in with Matnsaz, another thing that Zirak is working on and is actually improving every day. It is an Urdu text corpus for machine learning, natural language processing, and linguistic analysis. Some of the interesting things about Makhzan are that it has authentic resources from academic journals. So a lot of Urdu text that you'll see in the digital environment, particularly on websites, it has a lot of errors in it, so it becomes a problem to understand which one is the right way to write Urdu, what are the issues that we need to be aware of. So Makhzan uses these Urdu texts from very authentic resources, academic journals. There are 2 or 3 academic journals that are being used to feed Makhzan at this point, but it can definitely grow and become better. It is also free of cost and open source. All the data is available on GitHub. So if someone wants to use it, build another software on top of it, that's also a pretty interesting tool, I guess. So Matnsaz and Makhzan can work together in a lot of ways, and they are working together. One of those things is the use of the autocorrect. As you can see here in this picture, I'm writing one word here, and it just gives me more suggestions, uses the autocorrect as well. When I used to type Urdu language on iOS or Android devices, autocorrect and predictive text were something that were bothering me a lot, and I think Makhzan and Matnsaz solve that problem very well, and it also helps in keeping the language alive in the digital world, which reminds me of what Andres Kornai once wrote about the death of the languages in the digital environment, and that it is important for languages to have the software support, have autocorrect, and also predictive text and all these new things, so that you can keep writing in the digital environment and people can see what you're writing, your work becomes more visible. I also want to mention some other similar efforts that are being made to safeguard Urdu and promote it in the digital environment. Mudassir Azimi is one person who's been very vocal about the Urdu language. I had a chance to talk to him as well, and he's been talking a lot about the use of Nastaliq in the digital environment. And other than that, there are some people working on different families of fonts as well, like Meher Nastaliq is one font, there's a couple more as well. So all of these things combined, I think, can help Urdu a lot, and this is actually going to be pretty interesting for Urdu writers and speakers all over. Shukriya, thank you so much.